and welcome to this week's Umbraco DevRel Deep Dive. I'm Lotte from the DevRel team, and I'm joined by my colleague Sebastiaan. Hey, Seb.
Hello.
And this week we're going to talk about AI stuff. So we have the wonderful Matt Brailsford joining us. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Who's taken time out of his incredibly busy days, because I don't know if you realise, but AI moves quite fast. So I imagine, Matt, you never get to the end of your to-do list. Or rather, does your to-do list ever stay the same in the afternoon as it was in the morning?
No.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out today, because we want to look at Umbraco.AI today and help people get started using it and understand what we've already built, what's already there for people to build on top of, and hopefully for fast forward people being able to start now thinking about the AI packages that they could build on top of our foundation layer. So I'm going to ask Seb, I think, to take over at this point.
Right, yes, Matthew, just people can see the date on the screen. Okay, just 2 days ago, you've released a blog post about Umbraco.AI, and I think this was in response to a few people trying it out and not being entirely sure which of the many NuGet packages to install. And of course, there is quite a few to install. The proverbial kitchen sink can be installed in this script that you've made here. So this script starts with an Umbraco install, very standard Umbraco install. Then it installs Paul Seal's clean package, and then all of the AI packages and some AI providers. So these are for the different AI providers that you could get a API key for, so you can work with them. And then I saw a little curl command down here, which I very much enjoyed. So this is downloading a C# file. Please go read the C# file before you install it. Very dangerous. And then it runs the project. And the C# file does some seeding, so it sets up some things in the back office for you, so you don't have to think about where does everything live. So I've done this. And I came into Umbraco install with a beautiful new logo and some things filled in here. And our question to you is, what do all these things do? So this one I could guess.
Yeah.
That was a pretty easy one. Let's open OpenAI because it doesn't have a key installed, so I don't share anything secret. But all of these providers are similar, right? You give them a key. Maybe an endpoint.
Yeah.
Pay them money.
Yeah.
Pay the money.
At time of writing, the Google has a free tier. At time of writing, at time of talking now, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, so as you say, these are basically connections. So this is how do you connect to a particular provider. So these are all essentially created in code. They expose what settings they need, and we just build this UI to be able to capture these. And then all this is that straight connection to one of those particular providers, and then we can use that in other areas of the package.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so can you take us through the other areas? What needs to be set up first and why?
Sure. So the first is obviously connections, and then the second thing we'll do is set up a profile. Mm-hmm. So a profile is choosing a chat capability. So all providers have multiple different capabilities. So that might be chat, embeddings, potentially image generation, things later on. And then what we do is we create a profile for a particular use case. So your first one we're probably going to create is a default chat that is potentially just general purpose chat specifics. Here you choose which connection you want to use. From that connection, we list all the models that are available from that connection, and you can choose different settings for that as well in terms of like temperature, what the maximum tokens are. And we can also set like a system prompt. And at this level, it's more about kind of not detail, but just general guidance for the LLM. So like, don't use bad words, like your general kind of personality that you want that profile to have. So we can get into more specific prompts later on, but this is just setting the background for that particular profile. And then we use that profile essentially from anywhere that we want to execute prompts. So we can choose a profile for a particular purpose, and essentially you don't have to worry about the connection side of things. It's automatically wired up from the back office.
I'm going to set the temperature very high because it will give hilarious results, I'm sure.
What does temperature mean?
It controls randomness.
Yeah.
It is an AI specific term.
Yeah.
Where when it's trying to predict the next word, it will not get the most obvious word next, but maybe a bit more random word.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that might
kind of
provide some interesting results.
Yeah, maybe like how creative you want it to be.
Yep.
Oh, I'll think of it as flair.
Yeah.
Flair. That's good. This one is already tied to a context, so let's have a look at contexts as well.
So contexts are a way of giving contextual information to the LLM that helps guide it on how it should kind of respond. So we had the system prompt, which is kind of similar, but context can be all merged in. Like there's multiple places that context can apply. Here we've got one that's defined on the profile, but later on we'll see that we can also define them on the prompts themselves, on the agents themselves. We even have the ability to add a context picker to content, so it can be contextual as to where you are within your actual website. But it governs things like here, like the tone of voice, what is your target audience, how do you want it to kind of formulate what its responses are. So we can also do, like this is one example, we can bring other text documents in. The plan is this is all pluggable as well, so later on hopefully we can connect to like external documents. If you've got like spreadsheets or documents that you want to make available to the LLM, then we can also expose those. It's got some nice mechanisms on that, so some of the context can be said to be always injected into the prompt, so like one option, and the other is on demand, which is we'll give it the description of the context and let the LLM decide whether that's relevant to the action that it's performing, and then it will go get that context and kind of read up on what it needs to know for that particular action. So yeah, it's all about bringing in kind of context and information that would be relevant to the activity that's being performed.
That's interesting. Yep. All right. Do we need to look at anything else before we look at these two settings?
Settings is quite useful. So being able to set the default chat profile. So when we look at potentially like API calls later on, generally you'll send a profile, but we can also do it that you don't send a profile and it will basically fall back to whatever is configured here as being the default. So if you know you've got like a general purpose chat profile, then you don't have to send that along every time. We can just ask for a completion and it knows to just fall back to whatever is the default. So
yeah, nice. What is an embedding profile? It's something that a lot of people don't understand.
This is still a work in progress, but embeddings are generally to do with vectorization, which is about finding similarities in content. So rather than like for example, we've got Lucene in Umbraco, and that is all like keyword based. So if you're looking for something, you have to know the exact keyword that you're wanting to look for. Whereas embeddings create vectors which are more semantic similarities. So if you're looking for Umbraco, it knows that's related to CMS and will find more relevant terms from that. So later on, when we implement more features in this, then that'll make that available to add on some plugins as well.
Cool.
So everything that's in the core, that's what comes with the Umbraco.AI package. Yeah. And then your kitchen sink install script gave us 3 packages that we were installing, of which it was Umbraco.AI.Prompts and Agents. And so that's what's in the add-ons. So if other people go and create their other things, the idea, I guess, is that everything in core can be used by any package we've built 2, and we're going to look at those, I think, in a minute. But other people can go and build those, and we've given them all of this stuff out the box.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
I think, sure. I think the last bits in the core there are probably a log system. So this allows you to see all of the prompts and the agent executions that are being run. If you click on one of the times, it will give you like the full detail, and that'll allow you to see exactly what was the prompt that was executed. So you can much more easily kind of debug what's going on.
That's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's also the analytics section, and that just gives you a general breakdown of like what models are being used the most, which providers being used the most, and kind of what your token usage is, so you can just keep track of expenditure over time.
Yeah, this is especially important if you use paid providers, so you want to make sure that you keep an eye on not using too many tokens, because they all cost money at some point.
Yeah, and you can also see who's using the most tokens as well.
Yep. Just me, or at least the administrator. Yep. Nice. And what models and what profile also. This is very interesting as well. If you have multiple profiles, you can see what people are actually using as well. So it might be interesting to set up multiple of these. Nice. Tokens, requests. Very good. Okie doke. And then we have, as you mentioned, we have the add-ons, of which a few of them are installed, and we'll see them in action in the content in a minute. So we have some prompts for one of them is helping us make SEO descriptions. And on what basis does this generate an SEO description?
Sure. I think the key setting there is the include entity context. So what that says is when this prompt executes, pull in all of the contextual entity information. So from a content perspective, that's the whole content document. And that also gets sent along with the request. So then in your prompt, it's basically saying, just summarize this, create an SEO summary based upon all of the content that's in this document. And yeah.
Yep. And you can ask it to give you one option to choose from, or a few options to choose from, and you can say what number of options as well, or just information. If you just want to know something about this entity in this case, you can do that as well. I've not clicked on all of the context apps actually. What are these? Availability.
So availability controls where that prompt is basically allowed to be used. Yep. So that can expand down, and you can basically control whether it's on a particular document type or a media type, what entity types it should be allowed on, particular properties that it's allowed on, or particular property editors that it should be allowed on as well. So, and obviously there's allow and deny rules, so you can really kind of control where you want it to be available.
Yeah, just to give an example of what this does. We go here to a title, and we get these options over here, and we'll show that in a minute.
So in reality, that's all right. In reality, you'd probably change that SEO description one to only appear alongside your hopefully composition that you've used on every page, so it only appears, because it does appear on at the moment on any text box or text area as configured. Yeah, nice.
Yep. I also noticed some placeholders here.
Yep. So we need to document all of these, but essentially, if you do, you can see on this one, the checkbox for include entity context is switched off. Yeah. So this is going to be a much more optimized kind of prompt. So obviously, sending the whole entity context can mean you're sending quite a big message over to the LLM. So with this, you can also be a bit more controlled and use the kind of mustache style syntax to either mention specific property aliases that are on your content, or we've also got one for current value. So whichever property that this prompt is being executed against, you've got a current value that you can access as well.
Okay, and then the last thing we have is agents, and these are things we will see here in the as our chat option. Is that what I'm understanding correctly there?
Yeah, that's one of them. There will be more widely like a thing for a more broader concept. So the Copilot is one example of a use case for this, but they will also be usable for automations. So potentially running agents in the background on certain events. So this is why within the packaging system, when you're looking at installing the NuGet packages, it is split up quite a lot. And this is why, because the agents themselves can be reused in different locations. So for example, there you can see the surfaces, and this is how we're saying, okay, we want to define this agent, but make it available within the Copilot surface. So yeah, there'll be more services later on, so automations and other like potentially like front end chats if you wanted to expose like a support assistant for your website sort of thing. Then there's multiple opportunities for exposing agents in different ways.
That's cool. And these have permissions to do with entities in Umbraco?
No, they're to do with
no.
So these are to do with tools. So I think the fundamental difference with agents is that they can, compared to prompts, prompts are usually like a one-shot. Here's a message, give me a response, and they're usually kind of more textual prompts. But with agents, these can potentially have sequences of messages like back and forth. They can also make decisions, and they can also execute tools. And tools allow the agents to actually do something. So here we haven't got many tools defined yet, but this is like on our roadmap to kind of build these out. But these are the things that will allow you to ask the agent to update a piece of content, update some text, publish some content, stuff like that. All those require tools in order for the LLM to be able to do that. And this is quite a recent feature in terms of defining the permissions. So we obviously wanted to make sure that we got this in place before we start exposing kind of tools that can manipulate content. We want to make sure that we've got the permission system in place first. And there's loads of options there in terms of we're grouping them by scope. You can allow individual specific tools, and you can even do like user group based permissions. So like make it all read only for most people, but for administrator, give them an additional kind of ability on top. So
yeah. And these are the tools that we have available apart from the general ones, right?
Yeah, and these are all at the moment just like more example based tools. So we do need to go back through and really kind of make them proper tools and implement them.
But that implies that this is an extendable list that people can build on as well.
Yeah,
okay,
so
good.
all of the tools are extendable. So we obviously did that on purpose. We're going to want to have tools for like Engage, tools for commerce, etc. So as much as possible within the Umbraco AI platform, we've made it all pluggable so that other people can bring in tools and bring in providers, bring in add-ons on top of it all.
Yeah. Lovely. All right. I'll switch to content. I already showed you some of the things that we could do, but let's see what that looks like in action. Let's see, meta description. I want a SEO description, and that was defined as looking at this whole entity, which is features here. So I think I've got Gemini to work now. So let's see what it comes up with, if anything. I'm not paying, so it's extra slow today. There we go. Built engaging features. My spiciness or what was it? Temperature didn't really do that much. It's quite bland still, but maybe I should put some more instructions in there to say. Surprise me more. That's cool. And summarize was one of the things that we could do on. Would it work on? No, it doesn't.
No.
On a whole grid block. No, not yet. But that's something we're working on, right? So to summarize this whole.
So that's being worked on at the moment. So hopefully that'll be out pretty soon.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any pages where I can actually do the summarize. A blog item maybe. No, they're all blocks at the moment.
I think on any text based one, because it won't work on tit-tap ones, EDX. That's the one that I want to show.
Yeah, you have a working version of that. Nice. We'll show that later then. And I actually haven't played with the Copilot yet. Let's see. I need a terms of service for this page. Oh, for this site. Obviously, not obviously, but we saw earlier that the legal specialist has been set up to be with a specific prompt and with specific parameters. And well, it looks like legalese to me, so it did actually set up something, but it gave me a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. That's nice. I like that. Good. I mean, it's probably a nice starting point. You probably want to chat with it a lot more before you put this as an actual terms of service on your page, because that's legally binding, but it's actually doing things in its context.
Where was the legal specialist defined?
Yeah, that was one of our agents here.
Okay.
And the agent says content like privacy policies. I didn't even read that, but yes, of course. Does it say legally sound? Okay. Always recommend professional legal review for final versions. Very good. Thank you for putting that in. So that's nice. What if I asked the... So now I'm going to go tease it a little bit. What if I asked the legal specialist something about make a page about content engagement? Will it do something illegal around content engagement?
I mean, it'll probably try and answer you either way, but in a legal way.
It's community guidelines. Okay, well, it does know that it's doing something in its context, so that's nice. Be respectful. Very good. Okay, cool. And Auto, of course, chooses when you say privacy policy, it will start choosing legal specialist definition instead of the content specialist definition. Nice. That's nice.
So that's a fairly recent feature that we've added in there. So the agents themselves are all contextual as well by scope. So like if you move between content and media, then different agents become available or go away, which can be choosing which agent to use for a particular task can be like you're not quite sure what you're going to need for any particular purpose. So the auto mode is quite good because it allows you to basically just ask it a question, and what it will do is send a prompt to the LLM first saying these are the available agents, and here's the description for that agent. Tell me which is the best agent for this purpose. So you can see there it says before the message which agent it actually chose. So it'll show you as well which agent was selected for that particular purpose. Obviously, this adds to your token usage because it has to send a prompt before every question. So choosing the agent is more optimal. But if you don't know, then just ask it a question, and based upon what you're saying, then it will choose whichever's the most relevant agent for that task.
Yeah, very nice. I do remember. I did just remember that I put a credit card on my Gemini, so let's hope I don't do too much. I'm not sure if it's getting stuck now or.
Free tier. If in doubt, free tier.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to wait for this one. Oh, there you go.
It waits till you complain.
Shift head. Yeah, exactly. It hurt me. It's really good that it could read that Hacktoberfest logo, by the way. That's really cool.
And
I guess
Seal
the
is
larger
friendly.
version. Yes, he is. Very good. Would you like me to set the alt text? Sure. But will it do it? I can approve. Or not.
It failed.
Oh no. That was not expected, I guess.
I mean, it should, but this is also alpha, so
Yeah, fair enough.
Also, let's suggest Seb didn't configure the agent properly, right?
Oh,
Or would
that's
it tell you if it didn't have permissions to do what it was being asked to do? Would it tell you that, or would it just fail
I don't know because it's all in the instruction. So this is the thing, like you're in full control over the agent definition in terms of what it does, what it shouldn't do. So it's always as good as what your agent prompt is basically. We don't really add anything else to the prompts at the moment. So
Yeah. Cool. I mean, it's looking really cool already, and I'm I'm very excited to give this to people and see what they want to do with it. But in the meantime, you have been evolving this already. So this is the installed version from a few days ago. But you're working on some new stuff, and I would love to see some more.
okay. So I will just refresh this. So the first kind of update that I've probably been working on is tip-tap support. So we now have within a prompt, we can say a display mode. So a property action is what we've seen already when it shows as a drop down next to a particular property. But now we can also expose it as a tip-tap tool. And you obviously need to target your scope to point to particular tip-tap properties, either just all tip-tap properties or particular ones with property aliases. But when these are defined, then in settings on your data type for your rich text editor, you will now get a new AI prompt button. So you still need to add this to your toolbar config to say where you want to see the button. But now in content, then we will have on the TipTap editor, you now get a new AI button. And like these are useful because they have access to the text that's in TipTap and also what selection you've got. So here we've got an example of like a rephrase, and this will take the selection and give you a rephrasing of what was there before. So rather than like these are basically just execute on that property as a whole, whereas these tip-tap tool buttons allow you to be much more targeted in terms of what it has access to prompt against.
Yeah, so you had the handlebar definition for selection there.
Yeah, so this is another one of those same type things. So we've got a selection that allows you to see what that particular selection is. And current value would obviously give you the whole kind of value of that property if you needed it.
Yeah.
So the other bigger element that we are working on at the moment then is tests. So this is being able to perform scheduled tests over a prompt or an agent to kind of prove its functionality and make sure that it does what you need it to do. Obviously, working with LLMs, these are all non-deterministic, but you do want to make sure that it kind of falls within some kind of levels of acceptability and that it's not degrading over time. So with this, you can decide what you want to test against. So again, another pluggable thing. So here we've got implementations for being able to test prompts and being able to test agents. And in here, we can target which prompt we want to put under test. And then we have some kind of configuration. So we can say which profile should we use for this test, any particular contexts, how many times should we run this particular test. And then we can mock up a piece of content or an entity, whatever it should work against to give it some input value. So here we've got an example of like a document. So we re-render the document editor. And here you can kind of set up a fake piece of content that we can run through the test. Then we have variations. So this allows us to do multiple passes with slightly different configurations. So in this one, we can say, well, test it with a different profile. So we can then start to see, well, which connection and which profile is better at giving us the response that we want. So maybe which is the cheapest but also gives a good result. So things like that, we can set up multiple variations, test it against different profiles, and see which one's the best. And then likewise, all the different configurations we can kind of swap out and give different values to be able to test that. And then we also then have graders. So this is what scores whether it's doing the right thing. For example, here we've got an exact match grader. So we're looking for this exact piece of text that's in the response. We've got multiple different graders, again, all pluggable. So exact match, does it contain some text? Look for a regex, JSON schema, tool call validation. Did a tool actually get executed? And we can also use the LLMs themselves to say, well, run this prompt and whatever, like verify the result of that prompt to see whether the result from the test was valid or not. So it can basically grade itself.
That seems dangerous. I did great today.
Yeah. But then once you've got a test, then we can click like a run button, and we're still playing around with kind of like UI on this, but essentially these are all the test runs that have occurred. So here we can see, click on this, we can see all the details about that test, what the scores were from the different graders. We can see a full transcript of like what was executed on that LLM, the full output. We also have the concept of a baseline. So once you've run a test and you're happy with its result, you can say, well, this is the thing that I need to compare everything against in future. And then on your compare tab, it will show you the results of this test against whatever is the baseline. So you can see whether this particular run, has it improved, has it degraded compared to the baseline, or what. And like same with the different grading graders.
Yeah.
When we ran, if you did run with multiple variations, you also get this concept of an execution. So in here we can see on this execution we ran 4 different runs. So we ran each one twice, and we ran against 2 variations, which is the default, and then we did an OpenAI profile version. So here again we can see how that compared to each other, which one won out of like the different runs that were executed in that run. And yeah, you can just try and see what is the best performing option in that. And so that's testing. So we can hopefully start to validate more whether what the prompts, what the agents are doing is exactly what you want them to do.
Right. Yeah.
That seems pretty cool, because I was thinking like, oh, you'd have to go back, you'd have to change all your settings in order to go and check, run it again on a different model and blah, blah, blah. But it looks like this tests feature is going to give that to you. So that is pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty nice.
And can these run against the existing items, existing entities, or?
Not at the moment. That was one of the options that we were considering, but I think we get into the position where you then start to need to set up content to be able to the content should be allowed to change. Yeah, the content should be allowed to change. I think what we might do is have the ability to say, well, use a piece of content as seed data for the mock, so that at least you don't have to fill everything in. We can just in the dialog when you start to set up the mock, we can just say, well, create a new one from blank, or choose an existing piece of content to kind of copy from. So I think we can definitely do that. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Okay. Did you say these run on a schedule, or?
No, these are manual at the moment. So as I've said, when we're talking about agents, we were suggesting that there will be a level of automation. So we're actually looking as well at some kind of automation system, and in there we will hopefully be able to kind of schedule these types of things through that.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Is there anything else you are work in progress that you want to show us, Matt? The answer no, it's fine.
Yeah, not work in progress. I think the only thing we've probably missed in terms of information that people might want to see is everything that we've seen in the back office is nice to see in terms of how you set it up and like work with that, and like the prompts and the agencies are examples that we're seeing of like building on top of the foundation. So I think the key thing with Umbraco.AI is that it is a foundation. It is just meant to be, the core of it is encapsulating what it means to connect to an LLM, create profiles, and how you make a connection and how you make a request. So I think in the Umbraco AI GitHub repo, we do have some documentation which will be moving over to the doc site fairly soon. But in here, there's some good examples that are quite useful in terms of this one. So this is like an example within C# how simple it is to make an actual request or a completion request. If you want to send a prompt to the LLM and get a response back, then all you need is the chat service, say get chat response, passing in a list of messages, and you'll just get a series of responses back. So you didn't have to deal with kind of making the connection, choosing which LLM you're working with, setting up the chat client. You basically request that service and execute that request. And then we've got exactly the same wrapped up for within TypeScript. So we do have like a TypeScript library that you can, it is in these docs, but we'll, like I say, we'll improve these a little bit. But essentially within TypeScript, we can do similar thing, which is build up messages. And then we've got a chat controller that you can inject and create. And again, you can just ask it to do a completion and you'll get a response back. So again, if you're building a package in the back office and you just want it to be able to execute a prompt or some instructions and get an LLM response, then you can build it on top of this. And again, it's automatically wired up and all you have to do is make that call.
And everything that we've been looking at today is open source in this repository, isn't it? So if anyone wants to go and build something, as you say, so much of this is extendable, pluggable, is the easiest thing to go and look at how it's done here, and then it's just a case of releasing a package that does the same thing and just has its dependencies on Umbraco.AI.
Essentially. So both of the prompt and the agent packages are both in here, as is the Copilot. So you can go and have a look at the source code for all of those. And then we've also tried to keep up to date. These are all kind of LLM generated, but there is a lot of docs in here in terms of the docs public folder. So it was steered to be public facing documentation. So there should be quite a lot in here that's quite useful information to kind of get an understanding of what it all is, how it all ties together and how you could use it.
That's nice.
I have a question for you, Matt. How much of this has been written by Matt Brailsford, or how much of it has just been approved by Matt Brailsford?
I think 95% has been approved by Matt Brailsford.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I mean, if Anthropic use Claude Code to write Claude Code, then it makes sense, of course, that AI is speeding up, because goodness knows how long it would have taken to do this without all the AI assistants that we have these days. So
I don't think we could have built it in the time that we did without being able to use AI.
Getting the docs as well, I guess they help with that, don't they? Yeah. Sorry,
these obviously need some review. Like these have all just been these docs haven't been reviewed yet. It was just a case of get something in there so it's at least useful, and it is based upon what's in the source code, so it should all be relevant. But we do have a task to move this over to the doc site when we will fully review everything and make sure everything's up to standard.
Yeah, but for now, for those people who want to start playing, this is perfect, because this is like jumping off point. Also, you can keep it up to date as quickly as you need to. So I think people will be having some fun. Hopefully maybe at the Spark Hackathon that's coming up shortly, and other AI hackathons that are planned as well. Or, of course, in your own time. You don't have to do it in an AI hackathon.
I was going to say, and if I wanted to start playing, then what Phil would recommend me would be to clone the repository, tell Claude add this directory, and make me an extension based on what's already there.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. And then when you've got it all working, then you worry about releasing as a package. You'd then just move that code, or your AI agent of choice would move that code into a new package solution.
Well, the beauty of it already being all kinds of packages is that it can also do that for you.
Yeah.
So
Reminder that you can't use Umbraco.AI as the originating namespace of your packages on NuGet. Perhaps Umbraco.community.ai or something.
But that's a very good way of coding it. So a lot of how this was built was having the CMS code base. I also have access to the Umbraco Commerce code base, putting all those together, pointing Claude to those and saying, base everything off of these standards. So we know exactly how we want them to work. It can figure out how they're all meant to be glued together, and it is quite a nice way. I mean, Phil's got all the skill stuff. That's a new way of doing that as well, which is really good in terms of it then knows what the sections are in the back office, how property editors are constructed, and can be much more targeted with that. But even just pointing it to a folder and saying, here's an example based on this, works really well.
Yep, I can attest to that.
As ever, you just need the ideas, right? I mean, It sounds like the code's simple now. It's because of the foundation that you've put out there for us. Just ideas. As you say, it'd be interesting to see what people end up building. It'd be very cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that's on the marketplace at the moment, which would be really interesting to see, like how that fits potentially on top of Umbraco AI. I think that's what I'm most excited about. Is it's not all about the prompts and the Copilot that's in core. They're quite cool, and we are obviously working on those. But I'm really keen and interested to see what else people build on top of this. So.
And of course, if anyone has any suggestions, pull requests. I saw Owen Williams had a pull request accepted already for an improvement to the list of the Google models, I think.
Yeah.
And issues. Obviously, it's an open source repository, so contributions are welcome.
Yep. And as you can imagine, being AI, everything moves really pretty quickly. So yeah, things can get out of date really soon. So we've already had to recode the Microsoft Foundry provider because the old API became deprecated. So staying on top of that can be a lot of work. So again, community contributions on that. If they know something new is like a new API is out or something like that, then all the providers are on there, and we're more than happy to kind of accept contributions on those as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Matt, for taking time out of talking to Claude Code and instead talking to us. It's it'll calm down at some point, won't it? Will it?
I hope so.
Yeah, it's got to really. You just have, and make sure you do have a holiday at some point. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this, like, subscribe, hit a bell, whatever they're meant to do. And unless anyone else has anything to add, nope. Excellent. All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.